Okay.
Kylie.
Daniela.
Katie.
John.
Julia. So, in the first question, one of the questions is, what is the argument Borgman is making? I thought that one of the arguments he's making was that technology disengages human interaction, which kind of falls in line with his device paradigm when he observed a shift that happens in society as our tools and technology get smaller and smaller. A device is a technology that makes the end result of a process available like at the press of a button pretty much.
I also said like to understand the device paradigm you have to understand the pattern and the power that comes behind technology. So if you're going to be using technology for like order and democracy, you need to understand what type of platform you're on and how you can influence other people with it. So a technological paradigm proposes the idea of social order and why we do things in a pattern that we do it. And that can kind of relate to the workplace.
Yeah, I think also along with the device paradigm, Borgman mentioned that it almost kind of promises like enrichment and like control of life and like nature and stuff. And I think it also, due to that, we have some unrealistic expectations of like technology and like what life really is, because I feel like the view is so warped due to technology, and like when you take that away and like actually look at the core of like society and like life in general, it's very different than like what it appears to be.
And like as our devices get like smaller and like the process behind them is more complex, it's like we no longer like understand the simple processes they perform. And like in class when we started talking about the car and how like everybody used to be able to know how to like do a simple oil change, or like I don't know, if the car gets stuck and you can't put it in neutral, now like they're making that technology so high tech that simple humans can't even fix it.
Yeah.
Right, and he also brought up the fact that like the amount of like people that have to work on these cars, like it's not like it's
like
engineers, and it's like putting in like the computer programs into the car. It's not the people who used to make the cars anymore, because they're not that basic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like the question talks about being able to successfully navigate life, that kind of like, what's the word, degresses us?
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah. So we really can't be able to do that anymore if we need an engineer to do it for us.
Yeah,
Right.
the technology makes it so much, it like looks simpler and easier for us, but when it comes to fixing it, it's 10 times harder and impossible.
It probably
Right.
costs more too, which is also another issue.
Like technology is developed into a style of life for people, so we can't live without it.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
So the book also like explores like the limitations of like conventional ways of thinking about technology and its social context. So like both liberal, like democratic ideals and like Marxist lines of thought, concluding with a call for like the reform of technology and like also like the device paradigm. Like when he talks about focal things and like practices.
Yeah.
And here I think I'm gonna have to crop this.
On page 76, we talked about it in class, it talks about the stance for the whole, and it talks about the irony of technology when liberation by way of discernment yields to disengagement. So the distraction of technology kind of disengages us from what we're focused on. So say like in the workplace we had to finish something, we might be, like you could have like the news on like the TV or something, and that would totally like distract you from what like your focal point is.
Yeah, like in one of my reading responses, I said the effect technology has on the working society and labor process has like massively improved companies financially and systematically, which like makes you wonder what's gonna happen when technology advances so fast that your jobs are no longer needed and technology can do it for cheaper and faster.
Yeah. There's also like, I think Borgman's point of view on this is almost that he mentions like a couple times how like technology is advancing at such a fast rate, but us like as humans have kind of plateaued in like how we act like with other people or even digress because we don't know how to hold a conversation. But I think there's like the idea that at some point technology is gonna like almost overcome us. It's like it's gonna outgrow us, and just like I think that's why there's such a fear that it's gonna be a more powerful source than like humans.
Yeah, it kind of like already has, like going back to the car example, like
Yeah.
we no longer can understand it.
We could kind of talk about like the tetrad in that too,
Yeah.
because like how you said, it starts off like something super simple and now it's compared to something we can't even do ourselves.
So our tetrad, should we do that?
Yeah.
We said it enhances communication in like a general sense. It retrieves leisure of face-to-face communication. It reverses or loses letters and like messengers, and obsolesces face-to-face communication also.
So pretty much just saying communication went from super simple like mailman, you know, to now it's like communicating through our phones or FaceTime or something that's not, like it doesn't take as long to do. Like I could call you right now.
Right.
It'd be quicker than
Instead
sending
of
a letter.
sending a
Yeah.
letter,
Another thing that it kind of reverses is like Borgman talks about like focal things and practices, which are like leisure projects. So like we become so like engrossed in technology that we no longer like do things that do not involve technology as like a way to relax. Like I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but actually I used to like drawing like coloring books and stuff whenever I was bored and little, but like nowadays I'll go on my phone and do stuff to make me less bored.
Right.
Well, that's what he says in chapter 18 too. So we use technology as leisure instead of interacting with people. So we just interact with our device.
Yeah.
So we take away from basic human communication.
Or even on that note, like with leisure, opposed to like picking up a book and like increasing your knowledge and like vocabulary, we automatically pick up our phones, and that's like, it's become dangerous because it's a much more like mindless activity.
Yeah, you're just scrolling and not really using
You're
your
not
brain.
engaging
Yeah.
whatsoever, right?
A lot of the vocabulary you see on there too, like on Twitter, like that's just a bunch of garbage. It's just, it says like yins and y'all all the time. Like you obviously can't say that in the workplace or anything.
Yeah, he says like in order to experience the fullness of life, we need to restore like our focal things and practices.
He also talks about like the reduction of work in technology, and then like the reason for this reduction is like the division of work according to him. In other words, is the division of one's unified task by skilled craftsmen or people into larger tasks. And then chapter 18 mainly focuses on like how happiness appears to like decline as technological abundance emerges. And then he goes like with the promise of technology. I don't know if you guys remember talking about that. That has also like contained in its promise of more leisure and convenience.
That kind of like reminds me of when Apple like comes out with a new phone and you get it and you're like so excited with it for like a couple days, and then you're bored of it immediately and are waiting for like the next cool thing to come around and like entertain you.
So it just like gives something for people to look forward to, I guess, like every year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Should we go to the second question?
You think we should?
Yeah, I think we're the answer.
Do you want to check the time or no?
was gonna say that.
Maybe we should talk more about it.
So chapter 10 talks about the foreground of technology, and it also involves it in the workplace too. And one quote that I underlined is, "They fail to keep the foreground of our lives in focus. The discussions inevitably drift to the political and economic background." So you could find that anywhere pretty much. Like, you could find that on Twitter, Facebook, like pretty much anywhere where you can voice your opinions. Like, you're not focused on what you're supposed to be focused on, it'll just drift off.
I think Boardman also focuses, he does bring up the question of whether or not if we were to scale back technology, would that be like helping us or hurting us in the end? Like, would it be a good idea to kind of, like, not that it would probably happen at this point, there's no stopping it, but what would be to happen if we like slowed down the progression? Like, would we get any of those, like, the values back that we used to have, like face-to-face communication, like knowing how to do things for ourselves, or would it be like total and utter chaos because no one can do anything without technology at this point? And I just always thought that was kind of an interesting question, because when we do talk about in class like AI taking over jobs and stuff, like the first thought is to like, okay, like slow down the progression, but like what would happen? Would that be more helpful or like harmful at this point?
I feel like it would force us to like go back to face-to-face communication. And for some people, I feel like that would be like a disaster. Like, I feel like technology and like social media gives people a lot of like social anxiety, and if like social media and technology was like put in the background, I guess it would force people to do that, and I don't know if they would.
Right.
I said,